Those of you just say got it and on your screen when it pops up. Hi, I'm Ken Benson, and welcome to the first session of Oakland Firesafe Council's 2022 Savvy Series. I, by the way, am the president of Oakland Firesafe Council, and I reside here in the Oakland Hills myself. And just a little bit of background, Oakland Firesafe Council is a grassroots community-based organization that's dedicated to mobilizing the people of Oakland and the East Bay to reduce the risks of wildfire. And we do that through outreach programs and projects. And one of our outreach is our Savvy series. And this is the second year of our Savvy series. And tonight's session is Whatever the Weather. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you and turn it over to Les Putnam, Senior Risk Public Safety Specialist with Pacific Gas and Electric. And Les, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, Ben. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to make sure, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, very good.
Okay, great. And do we have the presentation on the screen?
Yes, indeed.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining tonight here with Oakland Firesafe Council. Again, my name is Les Putnam. I'm the Senior Public Safety Specialist for PG&E, and I cover all of Alameda County. And so I am a emergency contact for police and fire, county OES, and work closely with Firesafe councils in the Bay Area to provide training and information regarding electricity, gas, safety, and PSPS, wildfire preparedness. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is the weather and how it affects your utilities and how to prepare for that. And so we'll get started here. Looking forward to getting any of your questions at the end. And so we'll just move right along. So first I wanted to let you know that if you need to get a hold of PG&E for an electrical and or gas emergency, the contact number would be 1-800-743-5002. And so just put that in your cell phone, keep it handy. It's a great number to have if you need to get a hold of us for situations. Please remember, if it's a smell of gas, down wires, you really want to call 911 first. And they'll also dispatch a PG&E unit to your situation. But if you have something that is not an immediate emergency to your life or limb, go ahead and call the 1-800-743-5002. So preparing for winter weather, obviously with all the weather we've had recently, people are concerned about being prepared, especially with the snowstorms up in the Sierras. And the potential for flooding and wires down and being without electricity. So some of the things we recommend that you do before the weather actually hits, so have this done during the summer or off seasons, is make sure you have battery operated flashlights that work and have fresh batteries at hand so you can change those out as necessary. Do you know how to open up your garage door manually? Without electricity, you can't open up your garage door. You want to be able to get the door open so you can leave your house, and whether it's to go someplace safe and or do whatever else you need to do to support yourself during a bad weather situation. We recommend the use of LED candles instead of wax candles. Obviously, there's a fire hazard risk using wax candles. And so if you can use LED candles, that's highly recommended. Also, if you have a generator, know how to use it safely and have it installed. If it's installed or you're going to use it for any particular outlets, that you install it safely so that there's no potential for carbon monoxide poisoning. So with that, you would want to use the generator, place it outside where it's not generating carbon monoxide in the house where you're staying. Additional tips would be the safety of use of space heaters. So with space heaters, you don't want to be leaving them alone, especially with children or pets around. You want to make sure you have, if they're gas fueled, that they're not on a rug or a carpet. and that you don't ever put anything near a space heater that can quickly create another fire situation. Having a working carbon monoxide detector in your house is essential to keep your family safe, especially this time of the year in the winter. Everybody's using their forest furnaces, home furnaces, and especially when it's the first time that you've used it, it can potentially create some carbon monoxide issues. So make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector that's working properly, check it on a regular basis, and replace it every 10 years. With fireplaces, make sure that you keep the flammable materials away from children, and then they're always supervised, and that you have the flue open, and that you inspect and clean your flue and your chimney on a regular basis. So some of the things we wanted to talk about is safety around our power lines. Obviously, our power lines are energized and there's potential for being electrocuted. And so be aware of your surroundings after during a weather situation, after an earthquake. Anytime that there's potential for wires to come to ground or be damaged, you want to make sure that when you go outside and you're walking around, that you're just aware of what's going on, where the wires are. Stay away from the wires. Don't touch them. Don't put ladders or any other type of equipment or metallic objects near the wires. That obviously would create a potential for being electrocuted. Tell your kids the same thing. Tell them to leave the wires alone if they're on the ground, and to stay away from any power lines that are entangled in such things as trees or any other objects that may be close to the ground. If you're working near our electrical lines, in particular the service line that goes from the pole to your house, make sure you keep at least 10 feet away. That would be the safety distance we would recommend for the service line going to your home. Report any down wires to 911 and PG&E, and remember to stay 30 feet away from any wires that are on our poles. That's the recommended safety distance to keep you from being potentially electrocuted. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other types of outages that you may experience other than a public safety power shutoff, and I'll include that in this as well. So we have many types of outages. Rotating outages, this is the type of outage that we are familiar with during the summer, what we call brownouts. Those are created by the grid, Casio grid system operator. It's not a PG&E outage. So when there's too much stress on the grid system and there's a reduced amount of electricity available, the Casio outage grid operator contacts PG&E, informs us that we need to create rotating brownouts to reduce the stress on the electrical system. So this can happen quickly, and it happens within a few hours typically, and you will get phone calls from PG&E, emails and or text, and also through social media you'll have the notifications regarding the brownout, which areas are going to be browned out, and for the duration that they'll be out. The other type of outage would be an emergency outage. This is an emergency situation where we have equipment failure, or a vehicle hits a pole or something like that, where we have an instantaneous outage that is out of our control. You would be able to look at that outage on our website and determine exactly when it should be restored, as well as we would be sending you information again via phone call, text, or emails regarding restoration time. Then there are planned outages. Planned outages is a 10-day advance notice you would receive in the mail via or a door flyer, and that's basically anytime that we need to do any upgrading or replacement of equipment on a particular circuit. Active wildfires also create outages, and we often will shut off our electrical lines based on firefighter safety. So if there's an indication that the fire department needs a line shut in because of an advancing wildfire and the heavy smoke in the area, we would de-energize, and you potentially would lose your electricity until it's safe for us to re-energize. And then there's the last type of outage, which is the public safety power shutoff. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about that, because that's what's affecting a lot of us in the midsummer to late summer area, given the type of weather conditions that we have at that time of the year. So while PSPS's events are based upon Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas. And so what's a Tier 2, Tier 3? Tier 3 is an elevated fire threat area. And if you can see on this map here with the city of Oakland being highlighted, you do have some Tier 3 in the Oakland Hills area. This is an elevated area where we expect severe conditions that might create a condition of a wildfire given certain wind conditions, and I'll talk about those a little bit more. Then there's Tier 2, which is the yellow highlighted area, also in the Oakland Hills area, a bit further south, and less of a threat, but still a threat. So if you live in these areas, you have the potential to experience a public safety power shutoff. If you want to know if you're in this area, one of these areas, you simply can go to the website on the bottom of this page right here. It's ia.cpuc.ca.gov/firemap. That is the CPUC generated map that shows what areas are either a high fire threat, and you can just simply put in your address, and based on that, it will tell you whether you're in a Tier 3, Tier 2, or Tier 1 area. By the way, all of these website links will be in the chat here eventually, so you'll have the ability to look at those and copy them and have there for your access. So again, what is a public power safety power shutoff? So anytime we experience high winds where there's potential for debris and branches to fly around into our wires, into our assets, that's going to be an indicator of a potential power shutoff. With those winds, we're going to see high fire danger. Typically, it'll be a red flag day, and most of us know what that is and some of the conditions that occur for a red flag day. So you'll get notifications through PG&E regarding a PSPS in your area if you sign up for those notifications, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But we shut off the power in these areas, the Tier 2, Tier 3 areas, to prevent wildfires. That's our goal. To prevent wildfires if a wire comes down and potentially arcs and creates ignition in that area. Once the weather has passed, we'll inspect our lines, and once the lines are inspected, we'll be able to re-energize those circuits and get the electricity back to our customers. So that's the basic understanding of how and why we create a public safety power shutoff. The types of conditions that lead to that are low humidity levels, 30% and below. Again, these are all very similar to what you would see in that diablo wind situation. High forecasted winds, typically the winds will be in the 30 to 40 mile-hour range, and gusts sometimes get into the 60 and 70 mile-hour range. Red flag warning days, dry conditions of our materials, meaning that the vegetation in the surrounding areas has a very low moisture content, and with that, it indicates that they're becoming much more flammable than they would during a non-red flag day or non-PSPS event. And then we also send out teams to inspect the areas and find out if there's any additional indicators. Given the microclimates we have in the Bay Area in particular, we'll send these crews out, and they're taking weather information and then reporting that back to our what we call our HAWC, which is our Emergency Operations Center in San Francisco. And all of this information is looked at, and then the decision is based upon these conditions as to whether or not to shut off the electricity in certain areas. So how will you be notified of a public safety power shutoff? Typically, we know the weather conditions 72 to 48 hours in advance. So at 48 hours, we'll start making notifications to potentially impacted customers. We'll call you on the phone, we'll send you text messages, we will be involved in social media, making notifications, and we'll continue to make these notifications at 24 hours out and then just before we turn the electricity off in your area. Then we'll continue to make notifications during the PSPS event, whether it lasts 1 hour or 72 hours. We'll continue to make those notifications to let you know what the weather is doing, make what changes will occur, when to expect the electricity to be back on. Once power is restored, we'll also notify you to make sure that you know that power has been restored. If for some reason you don't have power, you would want to contact us so that we can send a crew out to investigate if there's something else besides the public safety power shutoff that's creating your power for not being on. One of the things I wanted to mention is we have a new address alert system, and the website is also on the bottom of this. It's pge.com/address alerts. You can go to this link and put in your address, and it will provide you in multiple languages information about a potential for a public safety power shutoff in your area. And in addition to that, you'll be able to sign up for various notifications however you want that, whether it's a phone call on your home phone, on your cell phone, a text message. And then once again, we will continue to make notifications through public media, such as Facebook, the internet, and so forth. One of the programs we want to talk about that we offer for our customers is the medical baseline program. If you have a medical condition whereby you need to have electricity, and some of those conditions would be something like you have a respirator, you have a CPAP machine, you have a medical device that needs to be charged for you to use throughout the day, whether you have medications that need to be in a refrigerator, any of those situations and additional situations will allow you to be able to use and utilize the medical baseline program. And what this really actually does is gives you an additional allotment of energy at the lower rate, PG&E rate. It gives you a discount on the PG&E bill that you have. And depending on the conditions and the severity, it will depend how much of a discount you would get. You need to apply for this through our link here, the pge.com/medical baseline. Once you go to that link, there'll be a form you need to fill out. And in some cases, your physician will need to sign that form, and then you submit the form, and then you would qualify for your discount, your PG&E medical baseline discount. One of the new things that we've have that's available for you is our Safety mobile app. And what I wanted to talk about this for is you can download this app, and once you do that, within the app, it'll tell you under what conditions you can use the app. You're able to report any safety issues directly to PG&E via this app. So if you have a situation where vegetation is in or around our electrical lines, that would be a situation you would want to report to us. You have a wire situation that's not down in an immediate hazard, but maybe it looks like it's unsafe. Any of these situations, you would report it. We would get that information immediately. You can send pictures of it as well, and we would dispatch a crew out to investigate and make repairs as necessary. So in order to get the app, you just go to pge.com/report it and download the app and go through the process that it shows in there on how to make the report. A number of other website links for you, for our customers during any event, any weather event, any type of preparedness for outages. And so on this page are a number of those links, and again, those will be in the chat. I mentioned the pge.com/address alerts, so you can get address notifications based not only on your address, but it could be your work address. It could be the school that you take your kids to. It could be a relative's address. So it doesn't have to be just your address that you put in that link. We do have within our website on pge.com/mywildfire-alerts, all of this information is available in 16 different languages. So you can look at that link, and it'll lead you to whatever language you need to have this information in to make it much easier for you to understand the tips that we're giving you here. We have a weather link, so you can look at the weather that PG&E forecasts. We have dozens of weather people within our Emergency Operations Center that are 24 hours a day looking at the weather and making predictions on potentials for public safety power shutoffs, where we assist CAL FIRE and many fire agencies in predicting fire behavior based on the weather. So it's quite a good resource for weather information, even if you're just going on vacation somewhere in PG&E territory. There's also a link for kids, and within that link we have some tools and some interactive sites and things for the kids to do regarding PG&E and utility safety. So if you have kids, that's a great resource for you as well. And then on the next link will be our safetyvacationcenter.pge.com. And that's if you're looking for safety information additional to what we're talking about today. Again, a lot of resources. If you have a generator or you're interested in a generator and what that would look like, we do have a link for pge.com/backup power. It talks about how to use a generator safely, places you can get discounts on generators, and a number of safety tips regarding generators. In addition to that, we have another link that regarding portable batteries. So if you have a medical device that needs a battery or backup battery, a wheelchair, for instance, a respirator, or any of those types of things, a CPAP unit, PG&E can, and in most cases, provide additional batteries for you to have as standby during a PSPS event. So at pge.com/storage, you can apply for those batteries, and in most cases, you'll be able to get those within a few days. So I wanted to talk briefly about planning for an emergency. One of the biggest things you can do is to plan for any type of emergency, whether it's a weather-related emergency, flooding, earthquakes, wildfires, whatever the case might be. You need to have a plan. And I know on the Oakland Fire Safety Council website, you have a lot of great information regarding a lot of this stuff. But just to highlight, make sure that you have a plan and that you practice your plan on a regular basis, that you have 2 escape routes that you want to have for your plan. Avoid using any types of switches, appliances, or electronics or phones during a gas leak, because those potentially can ignite gas within your house and or around your house. If you have pets, make sure you're planning for them as well. Include them in your plan. What are you going to do with them if you have to take them somewhere, and if you have to go out of your house and stay either in a hotel that doesn't allow animals? Can they be in a crate? Are they comfortable with that? Are they leash trained? Are there shelters in your area that allow for pets? And in some cases, vets are able to care for animals. But you need to plan for that in the pre-event of an emergency. Establish a location where your family can meet. So we'd like to have a primary and a secondary location, so that if you're separated, everybody knows to go to the primary location. If that's for some reason in a unsafe location, then you would go to your backup location. And it's another great way, especially if cell phones aren't working, to be able to feel comfortable that you're going to be able to meet up with disconnected family members. And once again, make sure that you practice your plan at least twice a year, and adjust the plan as necessary. Evaluate your home. Know if there are any danger situations within your home. Repair those, and there's a number of things you can do to make your home safer, especially when we have an emergency within your home. So know when to turn off the electricity and the gas, and how to do that. I'm going to actually talk about that in just a minute. If you have a fire extinguisher, know how to use it, know where it's at. Replace it on a regular basis, because they can become defective if they sit for too long. We recommend that they get replaced every year or recharged every year. So it's a great idea to use those extinguishers that are expired, and actually go out and practice with it. Make sure you know how to use it appropriately. Know again how to open your garage door manually. Install smoke detectors in your home, and again, carbon monoxide detectors would be the other detector you would want. And then again, replace the batteries annually, and then you want to replace the detectors at least every 10 years. If you have solar, know the solar installer's emergency number, because if you need to shut off your solar and you may not know how to, you want to contact them to be able to have them to come out and or talk to you about shutting off your solar system, so that you're not energizing the circuits in your home during an outage that may cause a fire or some other unsafe situation. Create defensible space outside of your house using fire-resistant vegetation. That's something the fire department recommends, especially in the open hills. That criteria has changed a bit over the years, so make sure you're up to date on the latest requirements for defensible space. Create an emergency kit. A 1-week supply of food, water in a waterproof container is desirable. And then again, sign up for PG&E outage alerts. And again, you can do that at pge.com/wildfire safety. An emergency kit, what's that? What should that consist of at a minimum? Drinking water, 1 gallon per person per day. Initially 3 days is recommended of water. I would say that given current situation and conditions, that 7 days might be more appropriate. So 7 days worth of water for your entire family. Have non-electric operated tools and utensils, so can openers that work manually, things like that, so you can open up non-perishable foods. And so we're speaking of non-perishable foods, things that you can prepare easily without power are good to have in your safety kit. If you have pets or babies, you would want additional pet food and or baby supply food so that they have what they need during the emergency. Once again, using flashlights, having spare batteries, and then a radio with a battery and or crank up system so that you can continue to get updates on what's going on in your neighborhood and the surrounding areas. Mobile phones have a mobile phone, have a charger for your phone, and in addition to that, have a portable backup charger for your phone. They make the small portable chargers that you can keep continually charged. That'll give you a couple, 2 or 3 charges in addition to your phone so that you can have extended phone time. First aid kit, obviously you would like to have something like that around the house. Additional blankets and clothing, something for the kids to do if you have children, again, that they are kept active and entertained and distracted in a sense. Make sure your important documents are in a safe location, a safe or preferably in a safe deposit box out of the home where they're going to be kept in case of a fire or any other type of situation. So that would be your medical records, your IDs, your family photos, and things like that. Medications and eyeglasses. I like to keep about a month's worth of medications extra in the house. That way, if there's an extended reason why you can't get refills, then you have that extra supply to get you through. Toiletries, obviously, you'd want those. Cash and credit cards. It says here at least $100 in cash and credit cards, but in today's environment, $100 barely fills your gas tank once. So I would bump that up to $500 and be able to have that cash on hand, because the ATMs aren't going to work, and other ways of getting money are probably not going to work efficiently. And then once again, other useful items would be paper towels, trash bags, different types of tools to be able to utilize for your everyday use. Okay, so what I want to do is briefly talk about electrical and gas emergencies and what to do in the event that you have one of those at your home. And so we'll start with electricity. I want to talk a little bit about the grid system and what type of poles we have. There are 2 different types. We have transmission utility poles, so the big towers that you see on the left here, but also we have wood poles. In particular, we have a lot of these wood poles that are transmission in the Alameda County area. And if you look at the pole, you'll see that there's a long, looks like a disc type, we call it an insulator, between the pole and the wire. The longer that is, that indicates that this is transmission. And so you're asking probably, why do I need to know the difference between transmission and the other poles? If you have a wire down or a pole down and it's a transmission pole, meaning it has the long insulators on it, you want to have a safety distance of 100 feet from that wire. These are typically 60 to 500,000 volt wires. And so the higher the voltage, the more distance you want to have. Our typical distribution pole is what you might see right outside your house. Short insulators on the poles between the wire and the pole. Our safety distance for these poles is going to be 30 feet on a dry day. And if it's a wet day, whether it's rain or the sprinklers or whatever the case might be, you're going to want to have double that, so 60 feet on a wet day. Wanted to talk to you and show you a little bit about our distribution poles and what the wires are and what they might mean to you. So at the top, the highest wire is the primary wire. That's going to be the highest level of energy on these poles, anywhere from 4,000 to 21,000 volts on our distribution system. The secondary wire that you see here is either going to be 120, 240, or 480 volts. And what we do is we tap in with that with a service wire, and the service wire, as you see here, goes to your house. That could be a 240 service wire or a 480. If you have the need for 480, we can provide 480 as long as your panel will handle it. Basically, what that means is that that wire that comes to your house is every bit as dangerous as all the other wires on our pole as well. I want to also mention regarding vegetation near these wires. We do not maintain maintain vegetation around any other wires other than the primary and the secondary wires. If you look at a typical pole, there's another set of wires below our secondary, and that's going to be your communication wires, your AT&T, your fiber optics. We don't maintain the vegetation around those. So if there's trees or brush up against those wires, because they're not energized, they do not pose a threat. However, in the Bay Area, in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 areas, we maintain a minimum of 18 inches of clearance around our secondary and primary wires. If we get into the Tier 3 areas and high fire threat danger, we can increase that as much as 4 feet, depending on the circuit and the a number of other factors within that area. So just so you understand that vegetation can come closer to the lower wires, but as we get into the primary wires, we want to have a greater distance for safety. So if we have a situation where there might be a wire down, or we've had an earthquake and you're outside, you really need to be aware of what's going on around you. So when you're out there, there's a number of things that you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking at the overhead wires, and you want to see if there are any broken ends on the ground or near the ground, and if they're energized or not. You're not going to know if they're energized. They may spark, they may not, they may make noise, they may not. So the reality is you don't want to get close to those, right? Sagging wires are another issue that should be reported, as well as any leaning poles that also would create tension on the wires adjacent to those. So this is a really dangerous situation. You want to stay on the opposite side of the street, again, 30 feet away from any of these situations, and notify PG&E and 911. How do you turn off your electricity? Well, most people probably know this, but if you didn't, you should have a main panel on the outside of your house. When you go to the main panel, as you see, you'll have a glass dial. That's the PG&E dial that shows you how much energy you're using. You're above that or off to the side, you're going to have a panel you can open up, and within there will be a number of breaker switches. You're going to simply move those switches from the on position to the off position, and once you do that, look at the dial, and it should actually stop moving. If it's a digital dial, they should all go to 0. If it's an analog dial, then the small metal dial on the inside would stop moving. I believe just about everybody in the Bay Area is now on a digital dial system. One of the things I want to talk about is touch potential. So what is touch potential? Anytime a wire comes to the ground, or if it touches a fence, there's potential that if you touch that fence, and it doesn't matter how far away, that you can still get electrocuted through that. Even wood fences conduct electricity because there's moisture in wood. Moisture conducts electricity. So in the video I'm going to show you right now, you'll see what happens. There's a wire that's down, the fire department's on the scene, and then there's an arcing situation, and it creates a dangerous situation to the firefighters that are actually too close. So the wires are arcing. This is a 60,000 volt wire on this swing set. And as they pan out, you'll see the wire off to the right. And as they pan out further, the wire goes over the top of the bush. Over here, the firefighters are within probably 60 feet, a little bit too close. But we have a metal fence here, and we also have a wood fence that they're leaning up against. What occurs here is, even though the wire is not touching the metal fence, because it's more conductive than the wood, it now is at 60,000 volts. If they were touching that fence, they all would have been killed. So the point of this is that anytime we have wires down, inclement weather and all the other things we talked about, you need to be aware of a wire touching a fence or a guardrail or any other situation where that electricity can be conducted away from the wire towards you. So just be cautious of that. This is called step potential. Step potential simply means that when the wire touches the ground becomes energized. That energy starts to dissipate after a short period of time. At about 30 feet, there is no longer going to be any energy in the ground. Unfortunately, if you're walking through this area that the wire is on, where the wire is on the ground, your feet will be in two different levels of energy because of that degrading energy levels. Energy by nature wants to equalize, so it will go through one foot through the other foot in order to equalize, and this is how we get electrocuted. So how do you prevent that from happening? The reality is, if you are in this situation, you want to stop. You want to put your feet together and just stand there until we can get the PG&E arrives on scene and we can get the electricity shut off. If you can't stand there and you need to get out for some safety reason, meaning that the grass has caught fire or you just need to move out of that area, the way to do that is with your feet together. You're going to hop, both feet landing on the ground at the same time, away from the wire until you're 30 feet away. That's the only safe way to get yourself out of this situation. What do we do if a wire is on our vehicle? This happens quite often. And so there are a couple of scenarios. The wire is on your vehicle and your vehicle can be driven. You can easily put it in reverse or forward and slowly move away and have the wire fall off your vehicle. You're now in a safe situation. Move the vehicle 30 feet away, and then you can call 911 and PG&E to get us to respond out to help. If you can't drive the vehicle, there's two options. Stay in the vehicle and don't get out. You do not want to touch the vehicle and the ground at the same time. If you can't stay in the vehicle and you need to get out, that would be a life and death situation where the car has caught fire. Then there is a method to get out, and I'm going to show you a quick video here that visualizes how to do that.
Honey, I gotta call you back in a couple of minutes. Oh boy, not good.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. Plan B, exit the vehicle. But now I gotta worry about touch potential. Touch potential is risk of electrocution based on one part of the body touching an energized object like a car while simultaneously touching the ground. Electricity flows from the vehicle through the body and into the ground, essentially making me into a human jumper cable, which would be bad. I gotta jump and land with both feet together. Whew. Okay, now step potential. Because the ground is energized, electrical current can travel through me if my feet aren't close together. Electrical current enters through one foot and out the other. The further apart my feet are, the greater my chances of getting shocked. So I must move away using short, shuffling steps.
All right, and short shuffling steps is exactly how you want to get away, and or hopping. And we talked about hopping. Shuffling would be you're moving your feet side to side, always touching and moving away from the vehicle. The key here, again, is you don't touch the vehicle and the ground at the same time. So when you jump from the vehicle, do not grab onto the car door, stay completely away from the vehicle. We've had this situation happen multiple times, and we've had people actually survive by doing this in that life-threatening situation. Once again, a reminder, 30 feet on a dry day, 60 feet on a wet day for any wires that are down. Oops, sorry, I'm going to go back to that. I want to talk about wildfires a little bit. Oakland Hills Fire, I worked the Oakland Hills Fire. It was a very dangerous situation. But what I want to emphasize here is that when you're evacuating your area during a wildfire situation, moderate to heavy smoke in and around our electrical lines can actually conduct electricity to the ground. And so if you recall the situation in Oakland Hills, we lost a firefighter from Oakland Fire Department. He was electrocuted. He was actually hit by a wire, but the reality is that driving through an area of moderate to heavy smoke with energized wires in the area can potentially create an electrocution situation. So don't evacuate yourself, even in a vehicle, underneath wires during those conditions. So do's and don'ts for electrical safety. Make sure that you're safe at all times. If you can, notify PG&E quickly, as well as 911 of any electrical problems. Treat every wire that's on the ground as energized. Avoid touching anything to the wire. Don't use wood sticks or anything to try to move wires. All of those things can actually conduct electricity as well. Keep the public away. Remember your safety distances. And then once again, if you're in a vehicle, make sure that you stay in the vehicle if you can. And if it's unsafe, then you're going to go through that process that you saw in the video. What not to do. Just don't assume PG&E's been called. We want multiple calls. That indicates that we do have an emergency situation. So anybody and everybody calling us is a good thing. Again, don't touch the wires with gloves, sticks, or any types of other tools. And if a fire is created by electricity, don't try to put the fire out, because you can actually get electrocuted through a fire extinguisher, through the dry chemical agent, or through a hose with water. So don't put it out. You need to shut the electricity off first, and then the fire can be put out safely. So quickly, I wanted to talk about some gas emergencies. So how do you know if you have a gas leak? Obviously, you're going to smell gas inside your house. So the mercaptan, that rotten egg smell, we add that to give it that particular odor. If you smell that, you have a gas leak inside and or outside around your house. If you see fire on cement or asphalt, that's an indicator there's an underground gas leak that's ignited. Typically in a construction site, any dirt blowing around, any construction equipment might indicate that they hit a pipe. And then once again, bubbling, where we have standing water, there are underground pipes may be leaking and creating those bubbles. So we would want to report that as well. Ignition sources for gas leaks, things you need to be concerned about. Vehicles will ignite gas. If you drive through a cloud of natural gas, your vehicle can ignite the situation. So you don't want to drive away from a gas leak. You want to leave your car there and walk upwind to a safe area, typically about 300 feet away from the leak. Don't use cell phones or any other device that has batteries in it around a gas leak. The arcing of the batteries as you make a phone call or turn on the flashlight can create ignition as well. We've seen this actually occur. Don't ring your doorbell, or don't ring the neighbor's doorbell. Ringing the doorbell creates an electrical charge at the doorbell, and if there's gas inside the house, we've had ignition occur from that as well. When it comes to the electricity, leave it alone. Don't turn it off, don't turn it on, just leave it alone. Moving the switch or any of the breakers to on or off creates an arc behind the breaker or behind the switch, and has potential for igniting gas as well. How do you turn off your gas meter? This should be pretty straightforward. Hopefully you all know this. First of all, you got to find your gas meter. It should be either at the left or right side of your house, maybe in front of your house. It may be in a cabinet. It really depends on your situation, how old your house is. Find your gas meter. As the pipe comes out of the ground, you'll see a valve. The valve is typically the first thing that's going to be on that pipe that comes out of the ground. You're simply going to put a wrench on there, and you're going to turn that valve, which is over here to the left of the slide. You're going to turn it from on to off, and that's a 90-degree turn. Once the valve is at 90 degrees perpendicular to the pipe, the gas is shut off. Take a look at the meter dials, and all the dials, once again, should stop. That indicates you shut off the gas inside your house. Other shut-off valves that you have are on your gas appliances inside of your house. By building code, every water heater, every furnace, every stove that's gas needs to have a independent quarter turn shut-off valve. So if your stove is leaking or not working properly, or your hot water heater is leaking, you can isolate that appliance by turning off the valve, and that eliminates you having to shut off the gas at the entire house. So you can stay in your house still. Call the appropriate appliance repair person, come out. You can even call PG&E. The reality is PG&E will come out, and we can at least make safe and in some cases make repairs if it's a gas line. So I recommend that you do that in order to get your appliances back in service. If you live in an apartment complex or a triplex or duplex and you have multiple meters, we talked about shutting off 1 meter, but if you had to shut off 20 meters in an apartment complex, that takes a lot of time and really don't want to spend that kind of time. So every situation like that, where we have an apartment complex with multiple meters, we have a master valve, and that master valve allows you to turn 1 valve and shut off all the meters to that, that building. So for gas situations, again, keep the public away. You as yourself want to move away from where the gas is leaking. We recommend 330 feet, so basically a football field, and then make that phone call to PG&E to 911 to get a response for your gas leak. All right, shut off the gas if you can, only if you can do so safely. If you're not comfortable shutting it off, then don't. Just move to a safe area. That's the best thing for you. Anticipate ignition, expect ignition, and try to control the ignition sources that you can as you're leaving the house. Go to your neighbor's house if you need to let them know that you have a gas leak, and they also may need to leave their structure. And then ensure, once the gas is turned off, only PG&E should be turning the gas back on. We need to inspect the meter, inspect the appliances, make sure they're safe before we turn the gas back on, and then relight the pilot lights. What not to do. Don't extinguish a gas-fed fire. You need to turn the gas off first and then put out the fire. The reality is citizens should not be trying to put out a gas-fed fire. We want them to just get away into a safe area, leave that to the fire department to be able to handle. All right, don't use electrical devices near gas. We talked about that. And then you're not going to be able to shut off any other valves within our system. We have multiple valves in the street, so we can shut off entire neighborhoods with 1 valve as necessary. And that is my presentation. This is my contact information right here. If you do need to send me an email because you have additional needs or questions, I'm happy to respond back to you. So make note of that as well. Other than that, I'll turn this back over and let you guys ask questions.
Yeah, thank you, Les. That was excellent. That's a lot of great information. So we asked people to drop some questions into the chat session. And there are a couple questions already in there. So let's start with one that was at the top. Are you supposed to keep your fireplace flue open when not in use?
Well, that's a good question. The problem with keeping it open is that you get a draft, obviously, and it can change the temperature inside the house. So for that reason, you can close it. But the problem with that is you may not remember to open it when you start a fire again. And so I personally leave mine open all the time, but I have glass doors in front of my fireplace. I close those instead, and that keeps the draft out. So it's really personal preference. There is not any real safety issue other than you're going to get smoke coming back into the house if you don't open that flue, and that creates a bit of a problem and probably end up needing to call the fire department to help with that.
Okay, here's the next question. This one might be well, I'll read it. What proactive measures are PG&E taking to prevent sparking wildfires in the county? For example, putting the power lines below ground, donating to local community organizations who are mitigating fire risk, such as ecological restoration projects.
Yeah, great question. And actually, we're doing a lot of things. So I'll just kind of mention a few. We are identifying those circuits in, again, the tier 3, tier 2 areas. Those are the high fire threat areas. And we're focusing on doing wildfire mitigation in those areas. So we're doing everything from extensively clearing vegetation away from those lines and reducing the fire risk based on the vegetation. We're working with fire departments, other local authorities to create fire breaks within those areas as well. And then we're also hardening the systems in those areas. And so hardening means we're putting poles in that are resistant to wind, resistant to damage. We're putting wires in that have a coating on them so that they're resistant to sparking and arcing, which reduces the wildfire threat. And then beyond that, we're actually looking at undergrounding in a number of areas. This PG&E CEO, Patty Poppy, announced late last year that the goal for PG&E is to underground 10,000 miles of wires in the tier 3, tier 2 areas. And we've already started that process in a number of areas. So we are looking at different neighborhoods to find out where we can get the most bang for the buck, so to speak, and get in and do as much work as we can to make those areas safe. So those things are already going on and will continue. And then, like I said, one of the tools we have is the public safety power shutoff, and we are using that to reduce the wildfire threat. And when we see the weather change and create a situation where we have the potential for arcing wires and wires coming down, that's when you're going to get a public safety power shutoff to reduce that wildfire threat.
Thank you. And I apologize. Our screen says, please type your question into the Q&A window. Well, we don't have a Q&A window, but we have a chat. So if you do have any questions, please type them into the chat. So here's another one. What steps are being taken to inventory the gas mains and prevent another San Bruno event?
Okay, so we inspect our gas lines. CPUC mandates that we inspect them on an annual basis, both our transmission and our distribution lines, including all of our valves. This was enacted right after San Bruno. So we do inspect them on an annual basis. We make upgrades to, in particular, the distribution lines. We've changed out a number, gone from iron and what used to be our first generation plastic to the newer plastic, which is much hardier and withstands much more underground, much more, is able to withstand much better under environmental conditions that we have. In addition to that, our transmission lines, not only are they inspected, but we use new mechanical digital devices, basically computers. We call them smart pigs, and we put those pigs inside all of our pipes on an annual basis. And they're taking pictures and taking a number of samples and tests to verify that the pipes are, and that the integrity of the pipes are in great condition. If they're not in good condition, we're replacing the pipe on a regular basis in areas where we have older pipe.
Thank you. Another question, how do I schedule a community meeting with a PG&E rep to discuss issues specific to our neighborhood?
So depending on what the issues are, that could be with me, or it could be with our local government representatives. So I really would need more detail as to the issues. And if you would like to give that person my email address, I'm happy to work with them offline and see what their issues are and connect them with the right person.
Great. Any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Anyone does have a question, type away. Nothing else. Well, thank you very much, Les. Really appreciate you providing this presentation. It's a lot of good information, and especially the parts about the how to avoid down power lines and how to stay away and how to react if there's a down power line. I think I'm going to go back and watch the recorded video a couple times to make sure that I've got that down. Here's one last question. Yep. Can you explain the CPUC proposal to reduce solar incentives? I don't know if it's PG&E related.
I am not well versed on what's going on with solar and solar incentives. I'm not. If you want to send me that question again via email, I'll do some research and find out what's behind that. I am unfortunately not versed on our solar program and what that looks like and where it's going.
Okay. One last question came in. I think this is a good one. I'm a renter of an older home. I notice when my heater is on and I'm outside, I smell a small amount of gas coming from the exhaust pipe. Is this normal?
From the exhaust pipe on the meter outside?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It just says small amount of gas coming, smell a small amount of gas coming from the exhaust pipe.
Okay, I would suggest that they call our phone number to get a PG&E gas representative out there to inspect the meter and talk to them about that situation. That doesn't sound normal. You shouldn't smell gas at all, whether you're outside or inside the house.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you again, Les.
Yeah, no problem. I saw a question about using cell phones around gas, pumping gas.
Okay.
Yes, you're not supposed to use cell phones around filling up your gas tank because of the static electricity and the arcing in the battery. Same situation with natural gas. And then the other question she had, looks like they had, was if one has an automatic gas shutoff. They're talking about the earthquake valve. Moved on me there. Is the procedure to turn off the gas manually the same? The answer to that is yes. The valve does not change how you're going to turn off the PG&E valve. The earthquake valve is designed when it shakes during an earthquake. It has a flapper valve on it, and it automatically shuts off the gas to your house, whether you're home or not. So that's great. It protects your house from any potential gas leaks. But if you never have a gas leak, then you're going to have to go out and reset that earthquake valve so that you have gas flowing again. If you're not familiar with how to reset it, call PG&E and we'll get a troubleman out there to set that for you.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, this recording obviously has been, this presentation has been recorded, so we will post that tomorrow on our website, Oakland Firesafe Council website, and you can go back and listen to that or pass that on to anyone else you know who might have missed this.
We can also put it in our YouTube channel. Yeah. Yep. And we'll send the link out in a newsletter and follow-up email as well.
Great, thank you. I just want to do a quick plug for our Oakland Community Preparedness and Response Program. This is our emergency preparedness. We provide a workshop and we have a lot of information online, and just wanted to call out a couple of pertinent guides that are on our website. A guide, for example, on PSPS, and we've actually taken this information from PG&E because PG&E does have some fantastic preparedness and response information on their site. So we gleaned a lot from them and put it in a condensed version into one of our guides. And then we have other guides on preparing before disaster, responding after, and then also on some backup power, different choices for backup power. So just wanted to put a plug in there. Please take a look at our site and our information. Ken.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Doug and Les. Thank you very much. That was very informative. And great questions from our audience and our participants. Please continue to sign up on our website for the next Savvy Prepared Communities Town Hall. There's one coming up, and Doug will talk about that in a moment. But oh, by the way, also our Oakland Firesafe Council will have a meeting this Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to noon. Please reach out if you want to attend, and check out our website at www.oaklandfiresafecouncil.org. And as I always like to say, we're a nonprofit. Please feel free to donate if you like what we're doing to help you be prepared. Donate early and donate often. Thank you very much. Doug?
Thank you, Ken. Jen, would you like to
plug for the newsletter? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And I just wanted to mention about subscribing to our newsletter. And we send lots of good information out, talking about the Savvy series, and then follow up to it, and then also whatever's happening in the area relevant to us. I am going to throw up the link for the latest newsletter. The first part of it is about tonight's meeting, but the second part is some really interesting information about tsunamis and how they can seriously affect Oakland. And so take a look at that. And then at the top of the newsletter, you can subscribe if you go to the very top of the page, close to the browser, there's a little blue button where you can click subscribe and you can get the rest of the information. So, and then also you can go to our website and subscribe there as well. Lots of places to subscribe.
Thank you, Jen. And I'm a little out of order here, but also wanted to note that our next Savvy and Prepared Community session is Know the Way to FireWise USA, the FireWise USA program. We think it's very important. It's gaining a lot of momentum in our Bay Area, and it's been in place for a long time throughout the country. And Macy Cornell from Montclair Neighborhood Council Chair, and has also been working with us to help us support and work with you to become FireWise communities. So the next meeting is Thursday, February 17th, 6:30 p.m. And again, you can go to the events page on our website in the next few days, and we'll put up the link to register for that. It may take us a few days, but we'll have that link to register. And we'll, of course, send out notices as well. So thank you, Ken. Parting word?
Yeah, my final word is be prepared, be ready, and thank you, and attend our next session as well. And thank you for participating tonight. Thank you very much. Well done. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We're here to help. So reach out to us with any questions.